Well, welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the college off-season podcast, where you could say we got a blast. Picking
Okay.
right where we left off
Okay.
from last week.
That's better. That's better. That's so much better than the old one.
I think you just wanted to make fun of me for looking like Jimmy Neutron.
I still can't believe somebody said that.
I can't either, and I was standing right there. I couldn't believe.
That's like someone
the
saying
things
that
I
I
was
look
saying.
like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
I mean, you kind of do.
I
You
mean,
know,
I mean,
you ever seen that like side by side where like they got designer rapping and Courage rapping right beside him, and like Courage is totally like barring him out. It's crazy.
Courage the Cowardly Dog is a national hero. I think
He
everyone
is.
really knows that.
I think everyone hated Eustace by the end of the show.
Oh yeah. I mean, even if he deserved to suffer the Pharaoh's curse. He didn't return the slab. He got what he deserved.
I mean, Miriam could whoop him anyway. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes I wish he got eaten by those ducks. Those
You just
space
wanted to
ducks.
see Eustace get eaten by ducks. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like there's some geese at IUS that could have taken care of him.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Those geese are different, bro. Those IUS geese, I swear, dude, they are the
They must-
meanest things I've ever seen.
They
If
must
they
have gotten
played
into a
football,
meth
they'd be
lab.
definitely middle line. They'd definitely be like a
They
free
would
safety
be.
down the middle.
They must have gotten into a meth lab or something to be that insane. I don't know what happened to those geese.
I mean, they are in southern Indiana. Oh, would I say that loud?
that's true. That's true.
Anyways,
They-
all jokes aside, I feel like I'm gonna need a couple brain blasts because like I'm about to hit a wall. Like I didn't even get my pre-podcast nap in, and I'm very disappointed. You know, I had to
I
work
know.
some extra hours, but it's okay because there's some reasons I had to work extra hours, but we won't talk about it on the show, but they know what's going on.
That's personal business.
Personal. It's grown folk business.
I just thought of something. The goose just walks up to you and goes, "I am the one who honks," like he's Walter White.
I know, I never watched Breaking Bad.
Really?
No.
I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
As far as like classic AMC shows, like The Walking Dead was one that I enjoyed, but like Breaking Bad, I could just never get into.
Have
But of
you
course,
seen The Sopranos?
no.
Yes, buddy.
Apparently, okay, speaking of The Sopranos, though, apparently there's a guy on The Sopranos that wears like a backwards hat or something
Mhm.
because I've been told I look like him too. I don't know who he is. I just get told I look like so many people.
Who they think you look like Tony Sirico? What?
I guess. I mean, I've never seen Sopranos, so I really don't know. I really don't have an opinion on this matter. So,
Oh my gosh.
which is worse, Jimmy Neutron or Tony Sirico or whatever name you just said?
No, it's not Tony Sirico. I'm just trying to. My mind is drawing a blank. None of these things make any sense.
This
None
is
of
just one big brain blast.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's to me. You look like Daggett from Angry Beavers. There, we're just coming with nonsensical things.
Haven't seen
You
that either.
remind me of. Oh my gosh. Have you seen anything? Okay, you look like Gurr from Invader Zim. There we go.
I mean, I love Gurr, but
that
I don't
one
think I
was
look
cool.
like Gurr.
No, if anything, I'm the Gurr of this podcast.
I was gonna say, I love Gurr. Gurr is hilarious. He makes Invader Zim, but no, I
You're
don't think I
trying to
look
drive
like
the
Gurr.
podcast and I'm going tacos, tacos.
I do like tacos though.
See, it's a good thing I am your Gurr. I keep you honest.
That's true. But anyways, on to the main topic of the show. Just be as you're watching the show, be thinking of who the best college football players is of all time, because we are going to put them all in a draft portal, and Matt and I are going to totally fantasy football style draft our all-time college football teams. And yes, it is exactly like fantasy football because our format is we got quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a flex, a tight end, defense, and a kicker. So we are going to do our best to draft the best fantasy football, college football team of all. I feel like I totally butchered that, but hey, we'll go with it.
I don't think you did. It's just there's a lot of really similar sounding words.
There is a lot of similar sounding words. Words are very difficult, by the way.
What is language?
As you would think as a former journalist and a journalism major that I wouldn't struggle so hard with words, but that has not been the case.
Well, I mean, the words are coming out of your mouth. That's a little bit different.
Well, that would be really unfortunate if I couldn't talk and be a podcast host.
Well,
Do like a whole YouTube series in like sign language. Like I would throw up some hand signals, but I feel like it would just look like I'm throwing up gang signs.
Probably.
So I'm
Without
gonna avoid
context.
that. I don't want any smoke, so we're gonna avoid that. But anyways, per usual, because I dominate the intro, Matt, you have the number 1 overall pick in our all-time college football fantasy draft. Who is your first overall pick?
Oh, so I don't have to pick it. For those of you playing along at home, I actually do not play any fantasy sports.
I wouldn't
I
know.
have I have no idea I have no idea how this works. I thought I had to draft a quarterback, but since I don't have to draft a quarterback first, I'm going to take for my number 1 overall pick because I don't have to take a quarterback, do I?
No, you do not.
I'm
You
going to
draft
go ahead
in
and get
any
him off
order
the
you want.
board because this guy's. I feel like when you talk about college football, there's one guy all time you always have to discuss. And so with my number 1 overall pick, I'm going to take Bo Jackson from Auburn. There
Solid.
are few people as legendary, few people as impactful, few people as frustrating, even to an extent, as Bo Jackson. And even to a guy my age, I was born in 1996. I don't remember anything about Bo Jackson's career. I never saw it personally, but to have heard of it and to see all the documentaries and all the hype that came around it, I've got to always harken back to just Bo Jackson. Because when I think of college football, he's the first guy I think of. And to be such a dominant force and a two sport athlete at that, I got to go with that guy to be my number 1 overall pick for college football because to me, Bo Jackson is college football.
I'm very disappointed because I figured that you were going to draft a quarterback first overall, and I was so prepared to call you a noob because that is one of the unwritten rules that you don't want to draft a quarterback first in fantasy football. So, congratulations for somebody who has never played fantasy football. You have already not broken the golden rule of fantasy football. So, well done, my friend.
I'm number 1, baby.
Anyways, so I guess it's time for my first overall pick.
Go ahead, Mr. Les.
And I'm also going to go with a college football legend, but he comes a little more recent. And when you talk about fantasy football, obviously yards, all-purpose yards, all are taken into consideration. So I think with my first overall pick, it was only right that I chose a guy that, ironically enough, was a lot of people's NFL fantasy football number 1 overall picks for several years, and a guy that also broke Barry Sanders' all-time all-purpose yardage record. And my first overall pick is going to be Christian McCaffrey. The guy could just do it all. Rushing, receiving, kick returns. I mean, just and as much as we joke about it on this podcast, just ask Iowa what he did to them in that bowl game.
Iowa.
Enough said. Because let me tell you, if I had Christian McCaffrey on my college football fantasy team, oh, do you have something to say, Bean? Oh, he's not in the camera yet.
He was thinking about
Bean
it.
actually went to the vet today, and he's actually tired from all the shots.
Wow, poor guy.
I know, but he's taking it like a champ. But anyways, if I would have had Christian McCaffrey starting for me that week that he played against Iowa, he would have single-handedly won me the week. Let's just go be honest about it. So anyways, yeah, my first overall pick is Christian McCaffrey out of Stanford.
That's a good pick. I got to be honest. He's a guy a lot of people don't think about too often, but I think that you're right. I feel like people need to talk about him more. Unless it's appropriate you talked about all-purpose yards because with my second overall pick, like I said, now that I know I don't have to draft a quarterback the first time, I'm going to talk about dudes who I think could help me would help you win a ball game. And you talked about all-purpose yards. This guy had a lot of all-purpose yards in his time at Notre Dame. He won himself a Heisman Trophy in 1987. And it's weird because you don't think of him a lot because he was another guy who surprisingly had a great pro career. And ironically enough, also with the Oakland Raiders. So with my second overall pick, I'm going to take touchdown Timmy, Mr. Tim Brown from the University of Notre Dame. I mean, as a junior, 1,937 all-purpose yards. He could run. He could catch passes, obviously. That's what he ended up doing. And he could catch kickoff returns. I mean, he helped Notre Dame win a national title. And like I said, that Heisman Trophy. Another guy who obviously is a Pro Football Hall of Famer, but whose college career kind of doesn't shine the way it probably should. So I'm going to go with Tim Brown for my second overall pick. Now I have Bo Jackson and Tim Brown, so I can cram the ball, and I have a guy who can get a little bit of everything done. So let's go on. Let's see who you're going to take with your second pick.
I think you have to be an unofficial Raiders fan now because of your first 2 overall picks. I don't make the rules. I'm sorry.
All
But
right.
you know,
It's going to get worse too.
oh, it's gonna get worse. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you got to just like buy all black and maybe put your face on the sphere in Vegas. That would be cool.
Can you imagine?
I'm all for it. You know what? Let's sign a petition to put Matt's face on the Vegas sphere.
And it's me doing something stupid like this.
I love it. We're doing it. We're doing it now. So, as for my number 2 overall pick, and people knew it was going to come because they knew that my homer pick was eventually going to come.
And
But to be honest,
totally
it's really not that much of a homer pick because he's still the all-time leading rusher at Texas University, despite the fact of how many great running backs Texas has had. I mean, his last 2 seasons, he had basically 2,000 yards apiece and over 20 touchdowns apiece. So going from a guy that gets a bunch of all-purpose yards to a guy that you just can't keep out the end zone, I'm going to go with my number 2 pick, the Texas Tornado himself, Ricky Williams. And fun fact, a guy that Mike Ditka traded all of his draft picks just to get. What a dummy.
What a dummy. Oh, man. Hey, he has over 10,000 career rushing yards. It's not his fault that, none of that happened in New Orleans or anything. But, it happens. It happens.
I mean, my whole thing is why would you trade all of your draft picks to get one player, regardless of how good they are? That's stupid. Like, even if Ricky Williams had all 10,000 yards in New Orleans, that is stupid. Because then who's going to block for him? I mean, not like you drafted anybody. Who's going to pass to take pressure off of the rushing game? Not a quarterback because you didn't draft him.
And those two personalities I don't think it's possible for there to be a worse combination of people than those two. I mean, to be honest with you.
I don't know about you. I'm Team Ricky Williams. He's a total bucket.
Oh yeah, I mean me too, but that's because of our attitudes on players. Mike Ditka. If you look up the term "old school" in the dictionary, there's probably a picture of Mike Ditka next to it.
First of all, you picked the wrong phrase. If you look up the term "old head," it's Mike Ditka.
Okay, well, old head. But what we're trying to say is Mike Ditka's style of thinking is a bit antiquated.
For sure. Absolutely.
All right. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. All right, Les. So we're my 3rd overall pick. I'm actually not going to pick a guy who played for the Oakland Raiders. Good for me, right? I know, it's shocking. I know, but this guy was one of the first players I remember watching a lot of in college football and thinking that he was going to be good. And just as overall. And it still astounded me when I was doing the research here to figure out he finished 10th place for the Heisman in 2006, considering he was the ACC Rookie of the Year, the ACC Player of the Year. He was a Biletnikoff Award winner, and he's just really freaking talented in his 3 years at Georgia Tech. I'm going to take Mr. Calvin Johnson, 3rd overall. Les is shaking his head like he didn't expect me to do this, or
no, because Georgia Tech rarely passes the ball. Like, he's not going to be getting numbers. That's why I don't think it's a good pick. I mean, Calvin Johnson. No. But before anybody clips this and makes some kind of weird take and comes from my neck in the comment section, no, Calvin Johnson's a monster. My man Megatron is a beast. But I'm talking about Georgia Tech's play style. They were still running the triple option back then.
Still had 1,000 receiving yards in 2006, though, which is what I'm trying to focus on. Believe it or not, he still holds the Georgia Tech record for receiving yards in a career with 2,927, which did surprise me. You think that, with the modern offenses and some of the quarterbacks they've had, that would have changed. But he does have the most receiving touchdowns in a single season. Once again, 2006 with 15 touchdown passes caught. Blah. You want to talk about being able to talk. But, thus, I'm going to be honest. You're right about the triple option. This was a personal pick because when I saw Calvin Johnson play, I remember it was at my grandma's house. She didn't have ESPN or anything, so I got we had the basic cable And on local Wave 3, you know how they used to have that ACC game of the week between like Virginia and Georgia Tech on like 1 o'clock between like two teams who were like 3-3 and not going to go anywhere anytime soon. I just remember watching a game like that, and any time the ball went in the air, something astounding just happening with Calvin Johnson catching the ball. And I was like, my God, that dude is like the future of sports. And in a way, he was. I mean, to be honest, he went on to be one of the great. He cut his career how many years short because Detroit was freaking terrible and was still a first ballot Hall of Famer without question. And the same thing with Georgia Tech. They didn't give him the ball nearly as much as they should have because they ran the triple option. But my God, when it shines, and he really shines. So, gonna be honest, that's a personal pick, but it's one I'm gonna make nonetheless. So I'm going Calvin Johnson third overall for me.
It's crazy because he pretty much had to make spectacular catches because not like any Georgia Tech quarterback is going to be throwing dimes out there.
Exactly.
So, anyways, I'm going to actually stick to a similar trend that you just did. And you picked an all-time great wide receiver that we remember more for his NFL career. In a way, I'm going to be doing the same thing, except there's one difference. In college, he put up a lot of numbers. In his lone season playing college football, he caught 96 passes for 820 yards and an astounding 26 touchdowns. And to top it off, playing in a weak conference, you just know he's going to be putting numbers week in and week out. Words are hard. And my first receiver is going to be Randy Moss from Marshall, who is, in my opinion, and I don't think this is a hot take, but some people might think it is. I don't know because they're old. I think Randy Moss is the greatest receiver to ever live. Dude was absolutely unguardable. Period.
Wrong.
I don't care. You're wrong.
Best wide receiver of all time was Dante Lavelli from the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, that's actually not who you're going to say, but that is still a very old.
Laverne Dilwig of the Green Bay Packers also has a case.
That's very old.
I'm being facetious. You realize, yes.
Oh, I thought you were being dead serious.
Oh, no, I'm being facetious.
I know, that was a joke.
Oh, okay.
I'm satiring your satire.
Who are we satiring now? Ourselves?
Probably, because Bean's a no-show this show.
Yes, Bean has given up on us.
Bean is tired.
Napping. He is. Oh, look at those ears. Oh.
I know. He has the cutest ears. He is the cutest everything. Oh, speaking of which, we ran the poll.
Oh, yeah.
And Bean unanimously, 100%, as voted by the fans, is cuter than Doug the Pug and Uga. So suck it, both of you all.
Bean is the true icon of our nation.
And as we speak, I'm making an Instagram page for him so I can start making money off my dog.
Excellent. And as for Randy Moss, well, he went on to have a very good season in 1997.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, he was a Heisman finalist. I mean, which with an absolutely loaded Heisman room. Had Charles Woodson, the eventual winner, and of course, my all-time favorite athlete, Peyton Manning, who probably should have won the Heisman that year. But we'll talk. That's neither here nor there.
That's a story for another weekend.
We'll talk about that. We might do in one of our filler episodes. We might do the biggest college football snubs of all time. That would be fun.
That would be pretty good. Yeah.
Anyways, we're wasting a lot of time on this. Let's keep going. Who's your next pick?
Well, Les, we're going right back to the old well with this one because there are some guys, like Bo Jackson, Tim Brown, Calvin Johnson, who are exceptional college athletes who are also incredibly talented NFL players. And then there are guys like my next pick who absolutely set the world on fire when they were in college. And then when they got to the NFL, kind of made me think, wow, I don't know a damn thing about sports. So in his 3 years at this SEC program, he ran for 1,000 yards, and nearly 1,900 yards for a rushing total of 4,590. He had 41 touchdowns in his career as a running back, 2 as a receiver, and 1 as a kick returner. I don't know, that's wrong. I'm sorry. I was looking at the next guy. And this guy, I mean, they in the SEC, especially during the mid-2000s, playing a tough schedule, just really impressed the hell out of me. And that guy is Arkansas running back Darren McFadden, who I really thought was going to be the next greatest thing when he was drafted by who, Les? Who drafted Darren McFadden?
The Raiders.
The Raiders. That's right. He's already in the College Football Hall of Fame. And I just remember every year in and out, Arkansas played an incredibly tough schedule. They were kind of like the forgotten team in the SEC West. And Darren McFadden was just a freaking human highlight reel every weekend. Big bruising running back, also had elusive speed. Just one of my favorite college athletes I ever watched play. Darren McFadden for my, I guess RB2 is what we're calling it. I don't know how draft lingo works, but I'm going with Darren McFadden for my next pick here.
Good pick. You know, it's funny because those watching at home are going to think that Matt and I were in sync when we were taking these notes, but we completely weren't at all. Like
No,
we
we
pretty
weren't.
much, yeah, pretty much Matt pitched the idea with me, and then we just kind of put our head down and took our own notes and came up with our own strategy. But
It's what we
ironically enough, my next pick also had me thinking that I have absolutely no idea how football works because this guy in college was an absolute monster. And then when he got to the NFL, he's one of his most notorious moments is getting locked up by a certain dreadhead cornerback that said that if you try me with a sorry receiver like this guy, that's the results you're going to get. And so my number 2 receiver is a guy that put up, let's just look at these numbers in college, that put up 231 yards and 41 touchdowns. Oh, that's not even the best part. In 2 seasons at Texas Tech. And that is Michael Crabtree. You know, the Big 12 is a flag football conference, and Michael Crabtree took full advantage of that. I mean, the fact that in his last season playing for the Red Raiders, he had a quote unquote down year, and he still had 97 catches and 19 touchdowns. If that's a down year, wow. That's all I got to say.
Wow.
But yeah, you can't deny the production that Michael Crabtree had in college. So for my wide receiver 2, I got Michael Crabtree. And like Richard Sherman said, if you try me with a sorry receiver like Crab, you know what?
Crabtree? Yeah.
Crabtree. That's the result you're going to get.
That
Don't
is
you
good.
ever talk about me. Period.
Les, I'm sorry, but I think it's time to go ahead and rip your heart out with this next pick because it's finally time for me to take my quarterback. And I think you know who I'm taking. So it's time for me to rip your heart out, and you're going to make a certain noise at me, and I'm going to be very concerned because already know who it is. 60 touchdowns, 5,671 receiving yards, 202 yards a freaking game. What?
Receiving yards?
Passing yards.
Okay. I was going
He
to
was
say.
so talented. He threw the ball and ran down and caught it for himself. But you already know who it is. And even before that, the season before, I mean, still pretty good. 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Trying to figure it all out. They help add to a career total of over 8,800 passing yards. The man, the myth, the cigar smoker, Joe Burr.
Brr.
Brr. How did I even get a minor in Spanish when I can't pull my R's? But yes, Joseph Burrow, quarterback, LSU, Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 overall pick, world's most famous Bengal, most likely. He will be the quarterback of this incredibly weird team that I'm putting together.
So that's a very good pick, and one that I absolutely knew you were going to pick. And, you know, I'm going to keep the suspense building because I still am not taking my quarterback. I'm going to go with the flex option. And
Okay.
with my flex, I kind of want somebody that I can pretty much put all over the field on offense. And, I mean, let's be honest. There was not too many people in college football more exciting than this guy. I mean, representing the West Virginia Mountaineers, who have been in news for, other reasons as of recent. My flex is going to be, still to this day, one of the most electrifying players I've ever seen in college football, and that is Tavon Austin. And the reason, and I wanted to go potentially with Percy Harvin here, because Percy Harvin was an absolute dog at Florida too.
Yeah.
But I figured because one played in the Big East, one played in the SEC, it's easier to put up numbers in the Big East, especially because the Big East doesn't even look anything like it did back when Geno Smith was playing for years. So, yeah, with my flex option, I went with Tavon Austin here. Still one of the most electrifying players in college football history.
It's funny, Les. It really is funny. You talk about one guy, and he's ironically the guy I picked for my flex option, which would be Percy Harvin from the University of Florida. A guy who I absolutely, another one of those guys who was just absolutely electrifying, could just seemingly do anything on the field. I mean, oh crap, my notes app went blank. Either way, I mean, you just want to talk about a dude who could return punts, catch the football, just an absolutely amazing durable player. In 3 seasons, 133 catches for almost 2,000 yards, rushed the ball 194 times for 1,800 yards, 19 touchdowns, 32 as a wide receiver, 19 touchdowns rushing, 32 as a wide receiver, 9.5 yards per carry as a running back, and 11.6 yards overall when you include his statistics as a running back, receiver, and a return guy. Just one of the most electrifying players I'd ever seen. Who I was honestly shocked when he kind of flamed out in the NFL because I thought somebody that athletic was just going to find ways to dominate and keep moving, and he kind of did. I mean, he did make a Pro Bowl, but in college, just when you kick the ball to Percy Harvin, or when Percy Harvin was running like breakneck speed for a Tim Tebow pass, anything could happen. So my flex goes to Percy Harvin.
As we approached 10 minutes ago, wow, this episode really flew by.
It
So
did. I
anyway,
like that.
yeah. So I'm going to shock the world and pick my defense early, and I'm going to go with the best defense in college football history and one of the craziest stats I've ever heard. If their offense never scored a touchdown, they would have still won 8-9 games, and that is the 0-1 Miami Hurricanes because
Yep.
obviously they didn't give up a lot of points, but they all also turned the ball over a lot, which is big in fantasy football. So that wraps up my defense. Matt, who you got?
I'm going to pick my tight end now, and it's a guy who I also expected to be bigger than he actually turned out being. His peak came in 2008 when he had 66 receptions for almost 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns. For my tight end pick, I'm going with Jermaine Gresham from the University of Oklahoma, who was a big cog in that offense and a pretty good player for the Bengals too. But I just remember that 2008 season, him taking balls out of midair like it was absolutely nothing. So for my tight end, I'm going with Jermaine Gresham from the University of Oklahoma.
I'm going to do the same thing and pick a tight end here. And, I'm going to shout out because this is actually the first current player I'm going to take, and that probably gave it away who it is. He's without question the best tight end in college football right now, and he's
Me.
used absolutely yes, Matt McClellan. And he's used absolutely all over the field, and because of that, he's going to put up some big numbers. And I'm going to go with Georgia tight end Brock Bowers for my tight end.
Now it's time for me to pick my defense. I went with a little bit of a surprise, I think, to a lot of people. But once again, this was a team that I remember was pretty much dominated by one guy, but that one guy was arguably the greatest college defensive player of all time. I'm going with the 2009 Nebraska Cornhuskers, led by Ndamukong Suh. But Ndamukong Suh is not where it ends because the secondary had Prince Makamura, and they pitched 8 shutout games in the Big Ten in 2008. Pretty impressive. So I'm going to go with the 2009 Nebraska Cornhuskers, anchored by a dominant Ndamukong Suh, and help generate turnovers in terms of fumbles and interceptions with Prince Makamura. So I'm going with 2009 Nebraska Cornhuskers as my defensive weapon of choice.
That's also a very solid pick. I cannot lie myself. But anyways, I think it is officially time to pick my starting quarterback for my college football fantasy team. And ironically enough, he would be a lot of people's first overall pick or first quarterback selection in fantasy football in today's football. And that is none other than, and I really hate this because I have more Red Raiders on my list than I do Longhorns, and that's totally disappointing. But I'm going with Patrick Mahomes, a guy that basically passed for 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, while also rushing for like 10 plus touchdowns, being able to do it both on the ground and with his legs and, fairly taking care of the ball during his time with the Red Raiders, as he does now in the pros as well. I don't think I'm going to lose too many points of turnovers. So my quarterback is my man, Patrick Master Chief Mahomes.
And it's time finally for me to pick my kicker. Unless This is a hometown shout out to a guy who I remember being pretty darn clutch in his time at the University of Louisville. You
Oh,
may
I knew you were
remember.
gonna do it. I knew you were gonna do it.
You may remember which one, Les? Which one?
Did you pick Art Carmody?
Yes, I did. Ha Yes, I'm going with Art Carmody of the University of Louisville to be my kicker. One of the first guys who I remember, one of the first kickers who I actually remembered the name of, along with Adam Vinatieri. That's worth something in my book. And the dude was accurate 80.8, and dude was accurate over 80% of the time. In fact, a fun fact: he and Blanton Creek, who I almost picked, are separated from each other by a fraction of a point when it comes to field goal percentage on college football's data websites. It's incredibly weird. But the University of Louisville, they had kickers.
And he's a really nice guy too. Not gonna lie. And also, fun fact about Art Carmody, he I don't know if it still holds, and we might have to check that after the show because we only got about 5 minutes left. But I'm pretty sure he set the NCAA record for most consecutive extra points made.
I'm going to look that up, Les. You go ahead and do your kicker while I check that out.
All right. Anyways, so since you picked with a hometown legend that I also had on my list, and I was hoping that you wouldn't pick, but I guess my second best option, you can't be that bad of a kicker, because most kickers aren't even drafted in the NFL draft. But this guy went in the second round, which I'm not gonna lie, that was a stupid pick, but still impressive nonetheless. And I'm gonna go with Robert Aguayo out of Florida State. I mean, when you're picked in the second round as a kicker, you must have been pretty good, and he was at Florida State. So my kicker is Robert Aguayo.
Unless, unfortunately, that record was broken. Wait, no, that's all-time points by a kicker. I'm sorry.
Get your shit together, Matt.
I'm sorry. He was beaten out by leading. He was beaten out for most points by a kicker by Boise State kicker Kyle Brotzman.
Shout out to Boise State because we show them love on this podcast.
They keep popping up all the time, man. Those damn Broncos.
Them in that blue field.
Those famous Idaho potatoes keeping everybody.
Because if you follow Matt McClellan on Snapchat, he always gives you a fun fact of the day. I'm going to give you a fun fact of the day because the Boise State field is the first ever colored field in college football. When it was initially debuted, the field was so blue that birds flew onto the field thinking it was a pond. Fun fact.
I'm just imagining you're doing practice and there's like, oh look, migrating terns. Ah, they're attacking. They're massing.
Just hopefully those IUS geese can't travel that far.
No, but I don't know if they're fueled by meth. They may be able to. A meth rattled goose.
That or they'll OD halfway there.
Yeah, that's true too. Then there'll just be giant meth riddled geese falling out of the sky. That would not be a good way to go.
That would be I'm trying to think of the word to describe that. That would be scary.
Apocalyptic almost.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. You're finishing my sentence, man.
Yes, we're getting under there. So, Les, how do you think I did in my first ever attempt to try a fantasy draft? Because I've never done it before.
Well, for those at home, let's review your picks real quick.
Oh, you want me to do that? I'm sorry. I have to do all the work around here. All right, so quarterback.
You asked my opinion, and I was trying to work in you reviewing your picks for the audience. I'm trying to crack two birds with one stone as we talk about geese and shit this entire podcast.
Geese. We should just talk about geese one time, the entire time. Anyway, quarterback Joe Burrow, halfback Bo Jackson, halfback Darren McFadden, wide receiver Tim Brown, wide receiver Calvin Johnson, flex Percy Harvin, tight end Jermaine Gresham, defense 2009 Nebraska Cornhuskers, and kicker Art Carmody.
So, to be honest, you did really well, my friend. But not to rain on your parade, it's really easy to draft when there's only two people.
It is true, yes.
And those listening at home, my all-time college football fantasy draft is quarterback Patrick Mahomes, halfback Christian McCaffrey, halfback Ricky Williams, wide receiver Randy Moss, wide receiver Michael Crabtree, flex Tavon Austin, tight end Brock Bowers, defense 0-1 Miami, and kicker Robert Aguayo. I think we have some pretty solid teams here.
I think we do. Alas, they will never play one another.
No. When the new college football game finally comes out, maybe we could set this up.
Maybe we could. I don't know if they'll let you play as legendary guys or not.
They have they have like updated rosters for that. Where like, you know, some people that like some programmers will actually let you download all-time rosters. So
Ooh,
like
that's cool.
so yeah, so you'll be able to. So I'm sure somebody will have like Randy Moss and like Christian McCaffrey and all them. So you will be able to download and we can all put it
They
together.
should at least.
Or if this podcast gets enough views, like somebody who's already on the revamp mods can do it now.
Please, if you do, let us
Please.
know. That's great.
That, and can we please be sponsored by Hibiscus Tea? That would be amazing.
You're gonna keep trying for Hibiscus Tea to like sponsor us, and one day maybe they will.
Well, I do drink it every episode.
He does. That's like his thing.
But unfortunately, this episode does have to come to a close. As always, like and subscribe to Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel to get up to date on our newest content. Also, follow our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. That is at Less is More Sports. And until next time, Matt and I, and because even though he didn't make too many appearances, and Bean.
And Bean, the cutest dog ever.
That's right. And it was voted by the fans. It's official now.
It's official.